Everyone has their Christmas and holiday traditions. One of the traditions at Dickin' Around Outdoors is that we smoke cheese for our family and friends. And today we are going to do that and continue the tradition. We have got cheddar, Jarlsberg, which is like Swiss, and Gouda, 3 of the favorites. But we're going to try something different this year. Normally I do a little bit of cheating because the weather's usually pretty bad this time of year, and I use my electric smoker. But one of my neighbors turned me on to these smoking tubes, which add a lot of smoke, hopefully, and not a lot of heat. So we're going to try this in the big Hasty Bake. We're going to try to do all this cheese at once and see how this thing works. Supposedly we can get 5 hours of heat. So let's get the cheese cut up and get this lit to see how we do it. Apparently it's a bit of a process. So wish me luck, I'm going in. The way you operate this tube, from what I understand, is you go ahead and you light the top layer of pellets. So let's go ahead and do that. That should be good. We're gonna let that burn for 5 to 10 minutes just to get that started. Then you blow it out. Things smolder, you put it down in the firebox, let it smoke away. We're gonna go and get the cheese cut up. The pellet tube has been going for about 15 minutes now. It took us a little longer to get the cheese ready. So now all we're going to do is set it down here in the firebox. And it's going to serve just like a rope burn. So it'll just slowly feed to the next pellets. We're going to go ahead and set that in. Open up the vents a little. Load on the cheese. And this does take up quite a bit of room, so hopefully we have enough room for all the cheese. I think we're going to be tight. Oh, so close. Okay, cheese is loaded up in the smoker. We had to do a little rearranging to get all the trays to fit. We were one too many. Now we're going to go ahead and just shut this. We're going to let it smoke for about 4 hours. And one thing that you really need to make sure of with cheese is that you keep the temperature under 100 degrees. That's why you'll see a lot of folks putting cheese on a smoker or sitting over top of an ice bath or a tray of ice. And that's to keep it cool, to make sure it doesn't overheat and start to melt and the oils come out. So we're just going to do this. That's the cold smoker tube, so I think we're going to be plenty fine. 40 degrees out here today, so I think we're having no trouble keeping this under 100. Starting to see some smoke coming out of the exhaust vent. I think we're going to get a good start here, so I think that's going to do just fine. And I just wanted to point out that I am not a lover of overly heavy smoke. So what I want to do, and one of the reasons I think this pellet tube is going to be nice, is because it's going to lay out the smoke, but it's not going to be overly aggressive, and it's not going to just douse it. It's going to be kind of a, I don't know, what's the chefy word? We're going to scent this cheese with smoke. So I think we have a great start. Let's just let it go. We are at the 4-hour mark. I am going to call this cheese done. Let's see how it looks. Oh my gosh, that's perfect looking. We have got, continue to get some nice smoke. This thing has been going for 4 hours, no problem. We've got some nice color on the cheese. Now what we're going to do at this point is we're going to take it out and we're going to let it sit sort of loosely covered in the fridge, of course, for a couple days. We just want the smoke to sort of meld into the cheese, kind of integrate, and then we'll pack it up, and that will be a vacuum seal. Today is the day. We're packaging up the cheese. It's spent a couple days in the refrigerator, just blowing off some of that smoke. And look at this fantastic looking plate of smoked cheese that we have. Oh man, that is gonna make a lot of people happy over the holidays for sure. So, we're gonna package this up and get it ready to go, but being that this is the first time that I have ever done any smoking using one of these pellet tubes, I'd learned a few things, and I thought I would share that with you in case you're wanting to try one or interested, or maybe have one and haven't really loved the results. So anyway, let's talk about what I think about the pellet tube. First thing on my list of lessons learned on the smoker tube. I think that the smoker tube puts out a stronger flavor than the Bradley briquettes. I think it's put out like a heavier dose, if you will. So what I see in this cheese is it's a little bit more smoke than I get from my Bradley at the 4-hour mark. So if you use a scale of say 1 to 10, the Bradley at 4 hours is about a 5. So it's a nice mild smoke. This pellet smoker with the pellets that I used, which again were just a standard blend mix, that put out what I would say is about a 7.5. It's not overpowering, but it's definitely there. You can taste it. You get a bit of a whiff of it. So it's a little stronger smoke than I normally get out of the cheese, but I like it, so I think everyone else will too. The second thing that I learned on this pellet tube is that despite my initial thoughts that this would burn sort of a consistent range of pellets all the time, in other words, if you're burning 2 fingers worth here, as you go down the tube, you will continue to burn 2 fingers worth. And that's what I expected to have happen, so I thought I'd get a consistent heat through it. What I think actually happened is that as this burned down, you actually saw more pellets begin to burn, so that what happened is the burn range of pellets expanded in the middle, and then as you got to the end, it opened up. And why this is important is that there were 4 pieces of cheddar that were right above the tube, and as you can see, these are the cheddar that was above the tube. This is the cheddar that was away from the tube. A dramatic difference in the amount of smoke that this thing took, and also heat. When I pulled these 4 off, they actually had some of the oils coming out of the cheese, which tells me that they approached that 100-degree mark. They didn't melt, but they were definitely getting greasy on the surface. So this put out more heat at a particular point in time than I was expecting. So what would I do to fix that problem? Well, we have a Hasty Bake, so what I would do is to put on the heat deflector and allow the smoke to circulate around that, but kick down some of that heat. If you don't have a Hasty Bake, there's a couple things that I think you can do. Number one is you can simply put the tube off to the side, whether it's on the cooking grate or in a firebox, put it off to the side and just make sure there's no food directly on top of it. Or number two, if you do need to put food directly on top of it, you could take a piece of tin foil, tent it, and set that over the heat tube, or sorry, over the pellet tube, and then that would actually deflect some of the heat, but still allow all the smoke to come out. So I would do that modification if I were to do this again. So I think next time that I do this, I'm going to also cut the smoke time down to between 2 and 3 hours. This didn't smoke so much that it got a bitter taste, but it is a stronger smoke taste than I normally do. So between 2 and 3 hours, I think, would be the next go around, so that I can give it a try and see how I like that. Another thing you could try if you wanted to smoke for a little longer is just to change up your pellets. My pellet choice, because that's what I had, was a blend, sort of an all-purpose blend for everything and anything. I think you could go with a milder smoke, something like an apple, and that would cut down the intensity as well. Thank everybody for joining me as I fumbled through my first attempt at a pellet tube smoker. Actually, I think it went pretty well. Now, I don't think the pellet tube smoker, or the Bradley smoker for that matter, is a real substitute for a nice hardwood fire, but it did the job, and it did it conveniently, and I was able to do a lot of cheese at one time without having to fiddle-faddle with an ice tray and that kind of thing. So, it did the job. If you like this video, please take a moment to share it, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the sub button in the lower right-hand corner. And as always, take care, and we'll see you outdoors.